And I was literally at the moment where I was like, am I going to just give up on this? Am I going to abandon all hope? Because it's not breaking for me. Should I just be a journalist? Should I just be happy doing this? Like, I got a pretty decent job. So I was very much on the fence of like, you know what? I'm just going to go and do a job and find a way to be happy writing comic books. And he said to me, he's like, listen, now's not the time to pull back. Now's the time to double down. Don't give up. Don't give up yet.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself, what you're working on, and what you've done in the past?
A little bit about myself. I am a recovering journalist. That was how I entered the professional world as a grown-ass person. I was a magazine editor and a critic for places like Starlog and Fangoria and Entertainment Weekly and The Hollywood Reporter and the LA Times and Playboy for like 18 months. And then I made the shift over to writing television full-time on TV shows like Castle Rock and Treadstone and The Continental and Star Trek Picard and Master Universe Revelations and Legend of Vox Machina. And all throughout that, I've also been writing comic books because I am at my core and at my soul a nerd. So a little bit for Marvel, a little bit for DC, books like The Highwayman, Monster Attack Network, Genius, Adora in the Distance, and Census. And right now, I am in the middle of proofing the last issue of Star Wars Mace Windu for Marvel and Lucasfilm, and in the middle of writing a book called Anansi Boys for Dark Horse, the adaptation of Neil Gaiman novel.
So you've been sitting on your hands for a while.
I've been a slacker, McFly.
So I'd like to talk about now your transition into going from an editor to starting to work in the television world. Were you writing scripts? Is that how you first got noticed? TV scripts, and then eventually you started working as a showrunner, right? So I'd like to get into that as well, because I think a lot of people don't understand exactly the responsibilities of a showrunner. They know that usually it's the creator who is the showrunner, but you're not just writing the show. You have a lot of other responsibilities outside of that. So take us through the transition from editorial to working on television.
The transition, it was bumpy, incredibly slow, and then incredibly fast, which I think is like everybody's history in Hollywood. I had been sort of writing scripts when I was at EW. None of them were particularly good because, you know, the first should be bad. You know, they should be the things you do to then hopefully get enough confidence to do the next thing that'll hopefully give you enough confidence to actually do a good thing. But I'd written a comic book called Genius, came out through Top Cow, in like, you know, 2007, I think it was. First issue was 2007. And there was an agent at William Morris who got a hold of the issue and was like, oh, this is pretty good. I think I can sell this. And I said, I'd like to see you try. And he said,
challenge accepted.
Yes, challenge accepted. And he did not. He failed because as I thought he would. But then he was like, well, you know, I still like it and I like you. You know, what do you want to be when you grow up? He says, well, I think I want to be a TV writer. I says, I like working with people. I like coming to an office every day. I like getting paid every week. He's like, yeah, all right, that checks out. So write me a pilot. Be willing to come out to LA for meetings. And if you get a job, you have to move in a weekend. So I was like, all right, okay. So I went home. I wrote a pilot for a big action adventure thing. You know, sent it out to him. Said, great. Make a plan, come out here in a month. So I bought a ticket, went out to LA, and then just a wall-to-wall battery of meetings of like, you know, executives just for general meetings where you just come in and tell your story. Hi, I'm me. This is who I am. This is what I do. Dazzle, dazzle, dazzle. What do you have? And they'll say nothing, but we'll keep you in mind. It's mostly that. And so I did that for a week. Nothing came of it and went back to New Jersey and waited another cycle. Because this was still at the time of mostly the network staffing schedules. Like we're staffing in May to start writing in June, to start shooting in September, to start airing in like October, November. So season didn't go. Next year, he was like, all right, write me another pilot. come in for meetings, and if you get a job, you got to move in a week. And so that year was I got the offer to go on Alphas, which was my first ever job. That was run by Ira Stephen Bear, who was the guy who did Star Trek DS9 back in the day from the Bronx, who remembered. He's like, oh, wait, you're from the Bronx, right? I'm like, yeah, Ira, I'm from the Bronx.
Nice.
And that experience was a lot of just like, shut up and listen. Like first ever TV show, like not knowing in any way really how the sausage gets made or what the protocol is. And so I find it always wise to just like shut up and listen and don't say too much until they ask you to start saying things. Which took them about a week and a half or 2 weeks of me sitting in the room silently like, dude, we're paying you. Like, what do you think of this? And then the process from there is, every show you do learn to do a little bit more. You learn a little bit more about casting. You learn a little bit more about post. You learn a little bit more about production. You learn a little bit more about hiring, department heads. You learn, if you've got good showrunners who are open about the process, because they should be, this is an apprenticeship. That is the way this works. You rise up the ranks. It's very good military that way.
There's no school that exists that teaches show running. You can't go to a university and learn it. You have to learn it on the job.
There's no class, and I think it probably began because a lot of these, the guys who were showrunners in the 50s and the 60s were dudes who'd been to war and had been in the army. Like you go from private to private first class to staff sergeant to lieutenant. You go up the ranks, and every bump up the ranks, you learn a little bit more about how this man's army is run. And so I think that had been, for a long time, the way TV worked. And part of what the strike was about returning to some semblance of that, where we're training writers how to be showrunners.
Nice.
Because writers hire writers. So the idea being that if you're on a show long enough and you learn how to do enough of it, then you'll be in a good position to at some point run your own show. And so every job was like learning a bit more, like adding another play to the playbook or another warning to the don't do this if you ever get to run a show book. To the point where, luckily I've gotten to the position where, I'll get hired to do a thing. It's like, hey, we've got this book we need to adapt, or we've got this movie that we're turning into a TV show. It needs a writer, and that writer will be the showrunner. And the thing that I learned was when you're playing blackjack, you cannot bet according to the size of the bet. Like you do it the way you do it. You're going to split these aces. You're going to split these eights, whether you have $10 down on a bet or $1,000 down on a bet. You're going to, it is always the same. And so whether you're working on a short film for yourself or whether you're working on $100 million TV show, the choices are the same. And the reasons why you make choices are the same. And the scale of it can't be the thing that pushes those choices. Like you're making them because they're the right choices to make. That's the right person for the role. It's like, oh, well, we're not sure if she's got enough Instagram followers. Or no, she's right for the role. Like it makes the most sense to shoot this in Australia. It's like, oh, well, I don't know, tax benefits, but, we got to move a crew there. It's like, it's the right place to do it. It's just remembering the gut check, remembering the why we're all here. And then knowing what you know and what you don't know. The experience that I had making a short film, never had
a Splinter.
Yeah, which I had never directed before since college. The crappy short made then. Now 30 years later, I'm making another short. Is knowing what I don't know. And it's like, listen, I know the script. This is the thing that I wrote. I know that it works. I don't know how to light a set. I don't know how to, mic a set. I don't know how to build a set. Like, these are things that I don't know. I know that you know them. That's why we hired you. So
exactly.
Tell me what you need. I'm going to get out of your way. I will only inject myself into the process if whatever we're doing begins to affect the emotional content of the story. Then that's when I step in and say, we're sliding a little bit. Mission creep is beginning to set in.
Right.
But like any kind of management is establishing achievable goals and communicating them effectively. And so being a showrunner is the same thing. You're running a business. You're managing people. Like, what do you want them to do? Can they achieve it in the time you're giving them? Do they understand completely what you're looking for? And just being able to do that in creative conversations with creative people is the job. really. You know, it's
Was it ever hard? Like, did you ever run into anything where it was like mission critical and things started falling apart when with a deadline looming?
thankfully, no. Thankfully,
Mm,
crisis has never really landed itself, on my doorstep. Um,
mm,
other than the crisis of this show's not going. Like, oh man,
mm.
like we all spent a
All right.
long time doing this work, and now it's not going to be a show that happens. Um,
Mm,
but and that's just it's the reality of it. Most things don't happen, and most things that happen are not good. So you're always just trying to chase the sliver of a hope that A will get to
mm.
make it and B will be able to be proud of it.
Did you enjoy the process of being a showrunner? Did you thrive in that role?
It is still the fullest experience of running a show. Like I run some animated stuff, and the live action, the big, we're at the cruise ship now, we're in the big boys table, is still ahead of me. But the experience of making decisions you can defend with people who are doing their best work, um, is at the end of the day all you can really ask for as a person who's running a show, as a person who is charged with the responsibility of telling a
Mm-hmm.
story. Um, is it a story we can be proud of? Yes. Are we doing the best that we can? Yes. Do we have everything that we need? Yes. Then all right, let's go get it done.
How's running a show, a live action versus an animation venture? Is it similar or easier maybe to do
The
an animation or?
the front end of the process is the same because the front end of the process is let's write some scripts.
Mhm.
And so you're still in a room with other writers and you're still just solving problems that are up on a whiteboard. That part of it is the same. It just gets different once you're in the production of it because animation just takes forever. Like
Right.
yeah, man alive. Like I worked on a cartoon, this Marvel thing that I did. It was my second pandemic lockdown gig. So what was
Ooh.
that? Like 3 years ago, I think.
Yeah.
And the show might be out this year.
Oh.
Wow.
Which one is it? What can
Um,
you say?
it's called Eyes of Wakanda,
Oh, okay. For
uh,
Disney
for Disney,
Plus.
for Disney Plus and Marvel.
Okay.
And yeah, it was a wonderful experience. Like the show has all of the potential to be super great. Um, but just it's painstaking. Like everything takes forever. Like even
Mm,
even high priority, even Disney, even Marvel. Like you can only juice the system but so much because animation
right.
just it's labor intensive. Whereas I live action stuff like it takes a while, but it's like we wrote it in March, we shot it in October, and it's on the air next March.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's faster that way. But yeah, like production is different, but the writing, which is for me, like that's mostly the job, right? It's like, can we get the words on the page right? Can we get the stories right before we hand it off to production? And then being there, of course, to ensure quality control. Like that's the job of a showrunner, is to answer the questions that keep on coming down the pike. Like, does it want to be A or B? Does it want to be green or red? Does it want to be left or right? How about left?
So along the way, did you have any mentors or people that you looked up to? Like I know, as an example, this is just comics. Like Archie Goodwin was known as a very very generous editor. He was also a really good writer too. But a lot of people know him for being an excellent mentor. So in any of the fields that you've worked in, did you have somebody who really helped you along the way?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. There were a bunch of people. Like in journalism, there were some former journalists who then became screenwriters, like Zach Stens, who's a very
Hmm.
good friend. Um, Damon Lindelof was there for me at a very crucial time when
Nice.
I was on the verge of giving up trying to be a TV writer.
Mm,
And I remember emailing him because I'd interviewed him for the Hollywood Reporter. Still it had been a couple of years since I'd been on the staff, And the interview went very, very well because we're nerds. We're nerds from New Jersey, from the East Coast. You know, he likes Star Wars. I like Star Wars. Comic books, like all of it was, you know, and so spending a day or two with him and just getting to know him a little bit. And then I violated a cardinal journalistic rule and asked him for a job.
Oh,
You know, it's like, hey, can I be on the leftover staff? And he was like, well, God damn it. All right. Well, you know, send me a script. And so I sent him one. Yeah. And he's like, man, I hate doing this because, you know, what am I going to say? Either like, what are the odds that I'm going to say that this is good? The odds are usually that I got to find a way to not break your heart by telling you that you're not ready for prime time. So I sent him the script and he read it and he said, listen, you're not right for leftovers, but this is good. And I was literally at the moment where I was like, am I going to just give up on this? Am I going to abandon all hope? Because it's not breaking for me. This is, you know, 2, 3, 4 years away from being on a staff. The further you are from it, the harder it is to get back to it. You know, should I just be a journalist? Should I just be happy doing this? Like, I got a pretty decent job. Like, this is a career that people have. And, you know, like my dad was an accountant. Did he love being an accountant? I don't think so. I don't know if anybody does. But like, he did the thing you did of that generation was you took your job, you got your money, you went on your 2-week vacation and you put your kids through college. And, you know, whether you're happy or not is not necessarily.
It's irrelevant.
It's irrelevant. It's not part of the
What do you mean passion? What's that?
Yeah, what do you mean satisfaction? Come on. We found our satisfaction elsewhere. It is not what you did, it's the results of what you did. So I was very much on the fence of like, you know what, I'm just going to go and do a job and find a way to be happy writing comic books. And he said to me, he's like, listen, now's not the time to pull back. Now's the time to double down. He's like, timing is not on your side, but you have talent and you have skill. So just don't give up. Don't give up yet. Now's not the time to walk away from the table. So
that's
like
amazing.
That was the like, all right, I'm going to write one more fucking pilot. And if that pilot doesn't do it for me, then I'm just going to, you know, I'm going to be a happy magazine editor and find a way to get satisfaction elsewhere. And that pilot, the one that I wrote as the last resort, was the one that opened the doors for me, which I would not have written if Damon hadn't said, double down, don't fold.
That's amazing.
Shane and I really appreciate you guys tuning into our YouTube channel today. If you enjoyed this short conversation and would like to see the entire interview, then please head on over to our Substack, where you'll not only find all of our full-length interviews, but a ton of super interesting posts that we've created just for you guys. Link is in the description box below. So until next time, thanks for watching.